Okay, first of all, I hope that you all have the very best 2025 possible and that you prosper and find success in whatever you're doing. If it didn't happen in 2024, then I hope 2025 is the year for you. 2024 was pretty weird for me though. I got multiple opportunities to spend a total of around 3 months overseas. The TSM PUBG boys asked me if I wanted to come along for some of their tournaments, and I'm not the type of guy to say no to things like that. Although that also meant that I had less time to make videos, spend time thinking about content, and actually play games too. Don't get me wrong, I'd never trade those trips to be able to play video games, but it does definitely impact how I look back at the games I did play this year. I played a lot less new games this year, and when I look back over this list, I am genuinely perplexed as to how it ended up the way that it did. That said, it's an honest list, and that's all that I can be. Because of that, the games on this list didn't need to come out this year, and if that makes this list obsolete for you, so be it. The only requirement is that I played them this year, but unlike last year, I'm going to have a distinct ordered top 10, and then every other game I list will be out of order. Of course, this is my list, these are my opinions, and it's not meant to be taken as gospel. Also, I apologize if I use trailers as B-roll. I don't always save footage of games I'm playing for some weird reason. I should really do that more often. But yeah, let's just speedrun through all of the games I enjoyed this year that didn't make it into my top 10. What really got me hooked on Nordic Ashes was its in-run and meta progression systems. Seems like a pretty superficial element to get hooked on, but I just really enjoy progressing in this game. This one succeeds in honoring all of my survivor-like fundamentals, so I'll happily recommend it if you enjoy that genre. Peglin is like Slay the Spire, but the pachinko machine version. You build a deck of orbs and just send them at the pegs, and the sound that's played when you hit a peg is very satisfying. It's a simple, good time. Gatekeeper should definitely be renamed to Gatekeepers, but the name doesn't stop this game from being a really promising roguelike experience. Imagine Risk of Rain 2, but from a top-down perspective. And the best part about all of that is that this game is in early access. This is going to be one of those games that sits at overwhelmingly positive on Steam, and everyone's going to be screaming about how good it is, and I'll have no choice but to scream along with them. Magicraft came out of nowhere for me toward the end of this year. I went into it expecting a fun, fast-paced roguelike, and instead have now spent about half my playtime just creating the most bonkers spells I can, because this game lets you get insanely overpowered and insanely creative. Definitely have a look at this one. Admittedly, my friends and I never finished Satisfactory or played the 1.0 version, but we did have a shitload of fun when we played it this year. Building factories in 3D space comes with its own fun and challenges, and the game is surprisingly lenient with its building mechanics, so I was almost never frustrated. Satisfactory is undoubtedly up there in quality and content quantity. Get it with some friends, you won't regret it. There's a lot to say about Wayfinder, especially its development story and how it got here, so what I will say is that it's a really solid co-op action looter with some intriguing progression systems and plenty of content to grind through. I can see so many different friend groups hopping on this game to grind it out together, and that alone puts a massive smile on my face. Okay, look, I've mentioned Realm of the Mad God far too much this year, but it's because it holds a special place in my heart. Realm of the Mad God is an addictive, free-to-play bullet hell MMO with permanent death. I've had so much fun this year learning new bosses that I've never fought before and getting pieces of gear I never thought I ever would. Deca Games is taking this game in better directions every year, and I'm happy it's one of the MMOs that I actually return to. I caved to my friends' demands this year and actually played some Dead by Daylight, and to my surprise, I had fun. If it doesn't get too sweaty, then Dead by Daylight is a fun time with mates, and I definitely had more fun with this one when I was actually scared instead of when I started to get competitive. Honestly, an inventory management PvP auto battler is the weirdest mix of genres, but in this context, it works fucking wonders. Backpack Battles is awesome, and once it launches into 1.0, I can genuinely see a competitive scene developing. I just love this concept so much, and it's great to play something competitive, but chill at the same time. Alright, with those games out of the way, let's move on to the big dogs for me this year. Rabbit and Steel isn't a party game like Overcooked or Human Fall Flat, but it will test your friendships just like one. Rabbit and Steel emulates high-level MMO raids in an action roguelike format, and it fucking slaps. You need to be precise, you need to be fast, you need to memorize attacks, placements, movesets, your own abilities, and more. It is intense in all the best ways. It's also frustrating as fuck, but that's not because the game is designed badly, it's because you seriously do need to be so precise with your movements, and on top of that, you're also relying on your friends to be equally as precise. Having all of your friends active is so important because the bosses are basically DPS checks, and if you run out of time, it's over. You'll also get the chance at items during your runs, a well-deserved break, and a moment to discuss who gets which item, yet another element that emulates MMO raids. Oh, did you want the same item as a friend? Fuck it, roll them for it. There's so much good shit in this game, and I feel like I've barely seen anyone play it. The difficulty curve isn't too insane to start either, so it shouldn't really matter whether you're a more casual friend group or more experienced friend group, you should have a great time regardless. Oh, and if the anime style and bunny girls turns you off, then I don't know what to say, man. That's a mindset that will cause you to miss out on hundreds of games you would have otherwise loved. Do not let the bunny girls deter you. Putting Borderlands 3 on this list is weird, of course, but this year I went back to 100% the game on Steam before the recent Game Awards announcement. Take the words I say next as a summary of this game's lifetime and a justification as to why it ended up on my list. Putting aside the obvious pacing issues, horrific story, and overabundance of legendaries, Borderlands 3 is the most well-made game in the series by far. The modernized gameplay elements complement the Borderlands loop superbly, and the game's content well runs deep, especially after the free and paid DLCs come into play, making Borderlands 3 even more replayable than I would like to admit. Grinding out the late game is incredibly satisfying, and legendary guns, while common, are a treat to use. Borderlands 3, above all else to me, is what happens when you exceed in some areas and absolutely crater in others. I can only imagine how good Borderlands 4 will be if Gearbox can put their collective IQ together to implement something as simple as a dialogue skip. But while we hope for that, or just better writing in general, I think we can all return to Borderlands 3 pretty comfortably. Children of the Sun is a baller time. In this game, you are the sniper's bullet, and you're on a violent journey of revenge, rampaging through a cult one head at a time. It's a short game, it's a game that makes you think, and it's a game that gets the sniper fantasy right while putting a sick spin on it. The art style perfectly matches the vibe while seamlessly baking gameplay elements into the visuals. It's a trip for sure, but a good one at that. I can't recommend it enough, and to think I'd ever be putting shorter, smaller games in my top 10 games of the year list shows just how much my taste has really changed over time. This one is good shit, and I highly recommend it. I've said a few times that Halls of Torment could easily dethrone the best survival-likes out there when it hits 1.0, and while I don't want to make any grand statements just yet, this one sits firmly in my top 3 and it's looking to challenge the best after hitting 1.0 earlier this year. It's so effortlessly satisfying, there's a ton of meta progression, so much variety, and it's so damn polished. It's like they took a QA team straight from heaven and plonked them in the office. Halls of Torment is stylish as hell and is undoubtedly one of the best survival-likes out there. If you like Vampire Survivors or any other games in this genre and Halls of Torment isn't in your library, do yourself a favor and pick it up. From Halls of Torment to Vampire Survivors. Vampire Survivors is yet another game I tried to 100% this year, and I did succeed, only for my efforts to be thwarted by the pesky developers adding yet more fucking content to this game. It's funny, because I hit all the achievements and only felt satisfaction for a second before I realized how much content I still hadn't touched. This game does not fucking end, man. It just doesn't. Vampire Survivors' identity is based very much around not giving a fuck and giving the players the tools necessary to have as much fun as possible, and that ideal spreads through every inch of this gargantuan game, making every minute a minute well spent. I joke with my friends that Ultimate Chicken Horse is the greatest game I've ever played, and even I know that that's a joke, but then I play it again and I go, hold on, this is fucking genius. This might actually be the greatest game of all time. The premise is simple. It's a platformer, but the catch is that you and your friends are the ones building the path from point A to point B. But of course, you don't want everyone to make it, otherwise you'd get no points, so you want to be the one that makes it the most. So you end up building traps, platforms, fucking teleporters, crossbows, and so much more to basically make the level nigh on impossible to complete, all while laughing hysterically. Grab a group of friends, grab a drink, play some Ultimate Chicken Horse. Somehow, and I don't know how, I put 300 plus hours into Warframe this year. I never ever expected Warframe to be as polished and as content rich as it is. I made a video on Warframe, so if you want to know just how good Warframe is, you can go watch that. But to summarize, Warframe is an epic, expansive, diverse, and incredibly generous free-to-play looter shooter with so much to enjoy. If you're in the market for that kind of game, I mean, this is the one. And look, I know your brain just glanced over the so much content comment that I just made, and I don't blame you, but when I discovered just how much shit there really was to do in Warframe, I was fucking shocked, man. You know the feeling you get when you're playing a game and you discover a new system to progress or grind through? That's what Warframe's like every 20 hours. And the 1999 update just came out, so now my video is even more outdated. I know that so many of you are saying things like, I just want a game I can spend thousands of hours in with a lot of content to grind. Yeah, man, trust me. Warframe is worth a shot if you find yourself repeating those words. DayZ was on my list last year, but it gets another mention here because somehow I enjoyed it even more this year, so it's up here at number 3. While the game has distanced itself from the mod in many ways, the intensity and anticipation remains as good as it was back then. I have so much to say about this game that I can't possibly fit into a little blurb, but please, if you've not dived into DayZ yet and you know it might interest you, give it a go. Ignore official servers, they suck. Find a good community server and push through the new player experience and you'll find yourself on a journey unlike any other game out there. This game has the reputation for being a running simulator, but nah man, it is so much more than that. There is a reason the DayZ mod exploded back in the day, and I promise you that reason still exists today. I can't quite describe how impactful Slay the Spire has been for me. This game is an incredible teacher, teaching you a plethora of lessons about patience, caution, forethought, you name it. And this game has my complete respect for that. It is the quintessential deck builder for a reason, but this year I learnt why. Balanced to perfection, seamlessly designed, and addictive as anything else. You might be able to find more extravagant or exciting deck building mechanics in other games, but you will not find a system as airtight as Slay the Spire's. I beat Ascension 20 in Slay the Spire this year, and it felt, honestly, pretty damn euphoric. But that's not because I'd beaten Ascension 20, that's because I'd beaten all the other Ascensions before that, and I remember the journey. I'm genuinely so glad I gave this game the time of day, and one day I'll return to beat the heart and knock down the Ascensions on other characters. At the top of most people's Game of the Year lists, I'm sure, Balatro had me entranced. I had a lot of free time when this game came out, and it would be the first thing I launched on my PC in the morning, and the last thing that was closed at night. I recommended it to a friend who then stayed up like 3 hours past his normal bedtime that night. This is a deck builder with as much class and style as the best on the market, and it executes its premise without fault. An exceptionally designed game, and a game anyone can pick up and play. As I sit here trying to write elegant words about why Balatro is good, I've realized that it's very hard to describe. Almost like the universe is trying to stop me from convincing you to buy it because it knows it's the most addictive piece of entertainment on the market since TikTok. But fuck the universe. Balatro deserves all the love in the world, and maybe a few hundred hours of your time as well. Man, look, while this channel is small, just know that I'm grateful for everyone who spent time consuming my content this year, especially as I learn and grow not only as a creator, but also as a human. Since I started, I've always wanted to just post what I want to post, which is why the content here is often scattered between games and genres and never super consistent. I've heard so much about how I should clickbait and post this or that because it's good for views, and while I'm certain I've done that and will do more of that in the future, I try to avoid that, honestly, and I just want to make what I want to make. If you fuck with me and if you fuck with what I make, then that's all I really ask for, and that's all I care about. If you've subbed, commented, liked, hell, even come over to my Twitch stream this year, thank you. Here's to an incredible 2025 for all of us. And yeah, hope you guys have a great day. I'll see you later.